I was wondering, when do you exactly decide whether you go on stage with the boys or with the girl, with the male or with the female band?
Oh, well, it's sort of a thing I decided at breakfast.
Okay.
It became if you say things too far ahead of time, I think you can ruin an idea. If you give people time to prepare, you lose that energy.
All right.
You know, if people have a schedule, it's the same reason it's not good to have a set list on stage, because if you see a list of songs, as a musician, you're playing drums, you're like, okay, we got that one next, and we got that one next, and you start, you know, psyching yourself into that. But to me, just call the songs out on stage. None of us, I don't even know what we're gonna play next, you know, until at that second. So the energy is fresh. You know?
So you don't have a set list at all?
No, haven't, and I haven't in any of my bands until like the very beginnings of my bands. We have them just at the beginning to get started, but it's the first thing I want to get rid of, because I want to have that energy to be fresh.
How about the fee? Do you pay the musicians if they play or not? It doesn't matter?
Yeah, well, they get paid no matter what, so that's the nice thing about it. So everyone feel a bit better about it.
Do they want to play, or do they think, okay, 2 days off is a nice thing?
Well, I don't know. I mean, some days I wish I had a day off. I wish someone else could take my place. You know, I mean, when you go out on the road, you kind of, when you play every night, and especially to play a different show every night like we do, sometimes you wake up and like, man, I just don't feel like playing today, but you got to do it, and it becomes a new challenge. You got to psych yourself into it. So I like that. I like that challenge.
For me, it's hard to imagine, if I imagine standing on a stage, playing a song, I would think about what's the next song. And at this moment, I wouldn't be in this song I'm playing right now. When do you decide the next song without a set list?
The crowd tells me. The crowd tells me what to do. Like if I was playing, you know, for children in a school, you know, I will do what's appropriate for that room, for that crowd. An old folks home, you know, and in a crowd in a club, and also what kind of energy is. I mean, sometimes you walk into a club. You know, we were in a club yesterday in where were we? Lyon, France. You know, 2,000 people, but they were so quiet. It sounded like 50 people. You know, so I mean, they're kind of telling me what to do. They're telling me what to do. Like I either have a challenge to try to excite them, or to defy them. You know. Ignore that. You know, you're presented like that. If you go play a show in South America, for example, the energy is just insanity. They're so loud and crazy. It hurts your ears. They're so loud and screaming, so energetic. It's kind of tough to play a quiet song on the acoustic guitar in that environment, you know. So you just, it's a great thing to do, because having no set list, I'm definitely with the crowd. We're working together. I think a lot of people don't know that. I mean, when you go to a show, you're participating. You're not just watching it like it's a movie. It should be participation, almost like church, you know. And so I like that, and then to feed off of their ideas, it helps me.
If a musician's putting out the record, the first thing we see is the album cover. So that vulture on your shoulder we see on Blunderbuss album. Metaphorically speaking, is this the bird who is going to pick up the last dead pieces of rock and roll?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Well, yeah, I mean, vultures to me are just these beautiful birds. When I moved to Nashville, they're everywhere around where I live. I mean, you see them and they'll land on the house sometimes. And they're so gigantic. They're just massive birds. They're bigger than eagles. Okay. And but they represent death. I mean, they clean up. They're like the garbage collectors of the world. You know, they clean up all the dead bodies, and they're so associated with death. So when the artist Rob Jones showed me that idea, I thought this is really great, because it's sort of me making friends with death, making death a romantic thing in my own brain. You know. So I really liked it. It just sort of summed up the whole album for me.
Let's step some years back. I read when you started playing the drums, you played along songs of Son House and Blind Willie McTell. I mean, these are songs sometimes without a drum part in it. So on one hand, it's logical to add a drum on it, but on the other hand, it's not the common way for an 11-year-old boy to learning how to play the drums.
Well, you know, when you get through playing, you know, the Who and Led Zeppelin and the Yardbirds and all that, and you start digging deeper. You know, you go back to Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and things like that. You know, where you just dig deeper as a musician, until you get back to acoustic blues almost.
Who showed you those blues or those tunes?
Well, I don't know. My brothers they were really into classic rock and roll bands, like, you know, Rolling Stones and
Okay.
and the Who. So we you know, you listen to those records a lot. But if you really love music, you just keep digging. You want to know where those guys listen to, what were their favorite bands, who were they into, and you get to the blues. The English bands love the blues. They resold the blues to the world. Exactly. Thankfully, thank God they did, because they kept it alive. You know, which is the most important form of music, I think.
I think one of the coolest things about the music you do is listening to your music means not only listening to a great musician, it also means getting to know a person who's a huge music fan, like you told me. What was the most important discovery you ever made while your musical socialization?
Of how the blues is everything. The blues is all kinds of music, modern pop music. I mean, Nicki Minaj right now, and Lil Wayne, that's blues music. And that's important to understand. It doesn't matter. Everyone has their own style of saying it, but it's still the same stories. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. Whether it's fairy tales, it's still the same stories. Disney makes a new movie for children, but it's the same 1,000-year-old fairy tale. It's okay, it doesn't matter, because you're telling it with just a new style. The songs that I write or perform, it's just my way of doing it, you know. They're the same stories. I'm not going to pretend like I invented this story. You know, I don't think anybody else can either. You know, you can have a rap song nowadays that's totally about the rapper's individual, his life, but don't tell me that story is any different from Robert Johnson or Blind Willie McTell, or what they were saying about their own struggles. It's very similar, just a different style. You know.
Different style and a different feeling in a different decade.
Yeah,
right.
It's beautiful. You know, that's great.
The Blues had a baby and they called it rock and roll. That's a song by Muddy Waters, you probably know, I think.
Yeah.
Let's go a step further. If rock and roll got pregnant, how would you call the baby?
Oh, it's hip hop, man. It's hip hop. Like that's definitely you know, breaking things down. You know, it goes in waves. Like things become complicated with big, you know, orchestras, and then it comes back down to really acoustic blues and one man versus the world, and back to big bands in the 40s, and then back to singers in the 50s, Patti Page, Elvis. And it gets simple, then it gets really complicated in progressive rock again, and it gets back down to punk rock, broken down again. Then, you know, pop music, then grunge, more simplified, more raw. Then it gets more FM radio and expanded, and then garage rock in the turn of the century. You know, the White Stripes, the Strokes, the Hives, you know, more broken down. It just goes in waves all the time like that. Hip hop is a broken down version of earlier music, you know, simple, a drum beat, a voice, just speaking, not singing. It's a broken down version of soul music in a way. Blues before that.